this time of the year, the focus is starting to do a lot of interviews, a lot of background checks with teachers and employees of the various players that we're interested in. We've got the free agency period coming up, as well as the trade period, and the draft combine, which starts on October the 1st, the first week after the grand final. So yeah, this is a really busy time for us, so a lot on. In the old days, once the season was over and the initial trade period was over, you knew exactly where your draft picks were. So, you know, if your last pick was 43, you realistically only needed 43 names to go into the draft. But now, because of live trading during the draft, you're not quite sure where your last pick may be, because a trade may come up that will bring you in earlier in the draft pick or satisfy a need earlier, but will throw your last pick out till much later in the draft that you hadn't anticipated on. So that's given rise to us having to have all bases covered, which means a lot more work in terms of covering the depth of players. Well, we're pretty lucky that we've got some experienced people in the department. So Simon Dalrymple, who's the National Recruiting Manager, he's obviously come from the Bulldogs, is well prepared, well organised. He's conducting the vast majority of those interviews. Ross Monaghan's conducting most of the interviews with teachers and employers, etc. While Chris Kane, our Senior Data Analyst, is working through crunching the numbers from the GPS data that we get, as well as the other data that will come through from the draft combine. It's comparable to other drafts. I don't think it'd be quite as strong as last year. The strength of it appears to be in midfielders and halfbacks, running halfbacks. Probably a bit light on for key position players, and a bit light on for genuine ruckmen, especially over the 200 centimetre. But the overall depth of it looks pretty good. Personally, I don't mind these drafts because the talent isn't as obvious. So sometimes there's some gems to be found, if you like, in inverted commas, later in the draft. Well, the trade period will influence greatly where our draft picks fall. So at the moment we look like having an early draft pick, but that doesn't mean that we'll hold that pick. We might trade it out if a suitable player becomes available, so we'll be open-minded about that. You target more specific players during the trade period in terms of position. Early draft picks in the national draft are more just identifying the best talent and taking them, because history will suggest good players end up playing in a number of roles. You might take them as an outside mid and they become an outstanding small defender or something like that. So you just take the most talented. Perhaps later on in the draft, in the rookie draft, you might get a bit more targeted towards set positions, but usually it's just the best talent available. Yeah, well, some of them have certainly produced more than what we anticipated. Nick Blakey's had an outstanding year for a light-bodied player. James Rowbottom, I think, has done more than what we expected. It's been great that Justin McInerney has debuted, and young Zach Foot's doing exactly what we thought he would be doing at this time of his career. And from the rookies, Harry Reynolds, disappointing for him that he got the stress fracture in his lower back. So his season's been put on ice because of that, but he'd been going really well. Durak Tucker injured his hamstring coming off the back of the knee reconstruction, so we haven't seen anything of Durak this year, which has been frustrating for him in particular, as well as the club to a degree. And then there was Sammy Weeks, who's playing really well, but through the injuries throughout the club, it's forced him to play more of a midfield role than a small forward role, which we'd hoped in the NEAFL. But he's had a really solid year.